Thank you very much. Can I have some slides? I'm going to give you a few examples of Gaines' work from about the last half dozen years on post-harvest loss. In many ways, they're concrete examples which illustrate many of the points that have been made in this session. We have a program that we call Plan Post-Harvest Loss Alliance Network. We started with two components of that. The first was an alliance component, and the rationale for that was that we really saw that many of the players in the market were not familiar with all of the other players in the market or the offerings that other companies had to make or the research findings, or they didn't know their government counterparts. So we felt that building an alliance was the first major keystone of the work in this area. The second component of our work has been a business-to-business engine where we've worked with experts in things such as the cold chain, my colleague over here, Kevin, and tried to bring some of these solutions to some of the smaller companies in the countries we've been working with, which are Nigeria, Indonesia, and more recently Ethiopia. And at the end of this, we've now realized that it's a good idea to add an innovation component as well, so I'll talk a little to that. So this, believe it or not, is a picture of our Nigeria Post-Harvest Loss Alliance network. It has 186 different members at this point. Most of them, the green dots, are all private sector partners, but there are also 18 funders, there are research institutions, and there are government members as well. So it's really a big platform which enables people to get to know each other, to get to know the different offerings that they each have, and to build off each other's work. Now, obviously, as the terms of reference for this session suggest, it would be great if you could link that kind of middle of the supply chain set of partnerships right back to the farmers. And this illustrates a piece of work that we've been privileged to have a small role with, but mostly has been work of the supermarket chain Spar in South Africa, which has attempted to link smallholder farmers through a pack house model with appropriate cold storage and then right through to their stores. And I think that the interesting thing about this model is that they've been working on it for about 6 years, and they've had the opportunity to tweak this several times now. And we're still, unfortunately, not at a point where we're able to offer a commercially viable model. They can't make the pack house in the middle work in this environment where the farmers are an awfully long way away from the stores. And I've been sitting here thinking, I do hope that not every retailer in the world is going to take 6 to 10 years to discover what it takes to make this kind of solution commercially viable. Because if we are going to solve the problems that we've been talking about today, every major retailer needs to have something which passes produce through appropriate cold chain to the consumer. Oops. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about system solutions. And one of those is to try and facilitate dialogue between public and private sectors. And that, I think, is something which has been really good about our work in Nigeria. This picture, I think, is from the recent cold chain summit in Lagos last week, where government officials came really to listen to what the issues that the cold chain sector has, and to try and think what could be some of the regulatory interventions that they could make. It's also very important to get different bits of government to work together. In Indonesia, we work on fish. Believe it or not, the Ministry of Health, who promote the consumption of fish, and the Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries had never really had any kind of formal governance mechanism to sit together and discuss how to promote consumption of fish. And it's only been through this post getting the fish out of the sea alliance that has begun to build up some of those conversations between different parts of government. In terms of market-based solutions, and most of what we try and do is market-based, what does that really mean? It means there has to be a business model that actually works for a company. So I think a really nice example of this is some of the work that we've just been doing in Indonesia with the fish sector. And of course, one of their major problems is that they take the fish out of the sea and then it all goes rotten before you can get it to the villages that are just 20 kilometers inland from the coast. And believe it or not, you can travel 20 kilometers in Java and not be able to get hold of fish because it's so difficult to transport it from the coast. And we had a competition, and it was won by an individual technician who came up with a new coolant combination. I don't know how significant really the specific coolant is, but offered it in a format that was appropriate for the small-scale transport of fish. And he has built this into a full business model where he's able to specify what the activities are, the value proposition of not losing your fish through use of new technological solutions, his customers, how he's going to tackle the customers. And the key thing here is to link in with the fishermen communities. And because of the alliance, he has a ready-built set of customers for his products, which means that they're already clamoring to buy this fairly cheap solution to transport their produce to different communities. So that's one innovation example. We believe strongly that innovation is important, and to the point that we decided to bring together a whole set of experts and to do a Delphi process where we tried to actually rank different innovations that we felt would improve this mid-supply chain efficiency of transporting product, and to try and identify what, from a huge range of different innovations, what might really add value. Not all of them were about post-harvest loss reduction, but many were. So just to give you a couple of examples of what they did, they were ranking on things like accessibility, affordability, shelf life, food safety. Obviously, shelf life, food safety, these are deeply connected with reducing post-harvest loss. And they found some archetypal interventions that they felt really ticked the boxes against these different sets of criteria. And we have this publication on our website, which goes through all of the 12 most highly ranked interventions. You might like to look at it. So this is one that scored highly. It's a very simple, low-cost solar dryer. This is one that Ben Falk would have loved, but he's gone, unfortunately. It's a solution for his chopping up the plantain from northern Côte d'Ivoire. It's a combined pack house and cooling room on wheels that will enable you to do all of those operations together. But what is the business model behind this? We just don't know. We don't have the answer to that. So echoing what previous speakers have said, yes, there are technical solutions, but where is the literature around the business model, the experience around rolling out some of these, trying them in the field, finding out whether they actually work to create a business? One that I can tell you definitely works is plastic crates. We heard about it this morning from Mr. Ungbo. So there's such a simple technology. This is used by one of our partners in our Nigerian alliance in Africa's biggest market, Mile 12 market in Lagos. And what he does is he purchases these crates and he rents them out for just under $1 a time. And they travel up to the north, they collect fruit and vegetables, and they come back down to Lagos, and then that's got the dollar value out of that. And why does this work as a business model? Because they can charge enormously much more for a crate, a smaller crate of tomatoes than they can for a much larger wicker basket of tomatoes, because consumers buying them at the market know perfectly well that when they buy a wicker basket of tomatoes, the ones at the bottom are all going to be crushed and useless. So they're willing to pay more for tomatoes in a crate, and so the business model works. Thank you very much.